Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are the perfectly audio balanced Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. I am using the secret to will it into existence. As you may know, we have had in some of our recent episodes some audio balancing issues, which not only did our listeners notice, but they emailed in to let us know about. So hopefully...
We appreciate the feedback.
I do. Look, it means people are listening, which is unexpected.
Surprise. Surprising.
I was going to say, this email has really rocked your world.
It has not. No. I want to, like, I hate...
People care.
As someone who
people care.
As someone who listens to a lot of podcasts, it does give me the shits when their audio is bad, because I feel like for the most, to get it to like 80% good is not that hard, but like sometimes you see people on podcasts just like recording with their AirPods. And I'm like, guys, I'm sorry, this is not it. That's not good enough. You need a wired mic that goes into a thing. Like it's not that hard to get good audio. And then like 2 or 3 weeks ago, it's like I'm booming through the mic and Adam sounds like he's, speaking to me on the far side of a distant forest. And it just wasn't good. Every now and then
to listen to that episode in the car, because I think maybe I wasn't on that episode. And I was like, my wife was trying to sleep, so I'm like, all right, I have it like at a level I can hear Adam, and then George goes, and another thing. Like, oh, holy shit.
It's like when you're driving, you stop at the traffic lights in a car and then you hear someone having a phone conversation through their
oh yeah, it's just like super loud
car, and you just hear everything they're talking about.
Yeah, you're talking about their latest colonoscopy.
Yeah, like why is your car so loud? Anyway.
I can't believe she cheated on him. That's crazy. Like, I don't know, Carol, maybe you should keep this to yourself. Like, this seems like a private conversation. Why can I hear it on the other side of your Nissan X-Trail? Like,
the same thing happened the other day. I was on a tram, and then there was some old guy who just was using speakerphone, but he was booking, like a...
Bro, the people that talk on their speakerphone. I heard a woman, I was walking past, and this woman was like listening to a podcast on speakerphone on the walking track, this boomer. And I was like, lady, I need to send you a message about AirPods. Can I airdrop you something? Like, you should not be having, whatever, like private conversations on speakerphone on the walking trail. It's incredibly disrespectful. Here's me trying to enjoy nature. Yeah, I'm trying to enjoy nature with my son, and I'm hearing about like Waleed Ali's latest dog shit opinion about something. It's like, what is happening?
If I want to wallow in the sadness of my own thoughts, I have the right to do that.
Thank you. Yes.
Waleed Ali's opinions cutting through. So anyway. Speaking of wallowing in sadness.
What was that thing? The Waleed's latest dog shit opinion on something that did I send that to you guys or you sent it to me?
Zohran Mamdani and Pauline Hanson are both the same.
The same thing. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it was an absolute weapons grade dog shit take.
Yes. Oh, just an
because
absolute.
They both what?
They're both selling false hope.
Yeah, selling to the extremes, basically. Waleed Ali preaching the gospel of moderation. It's just absolutely just classic, like New York Times, Sydney Morning Herald, dog shit.
I remember like 10 years ago, I was like, I don't know about Waleed Ali. He's like a bit, I don't really like
you saw it coming.
He says, and then, all the girls I was at uni with at that time were just like, oh, no, he's great. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm in the wrong. But I don't know. As time has gone on, I've been like, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember him making some good points and then being like, oh, maybe not so much. And then I saw him shred at the Walkleys. Yeah. And I was like,
on a guitar.
That was probably peak Waleed.
This is awesome. And now I just see it's nothing but dog shit takes and much fewer guitar solos. So Waleed, you picked the wrong path.
You got to pick a lane, buddy. I saw. So I used to listen to this podcast he did on Radio National several years ago, which wasn't bad because it was more sort of like talking about like philosophical discussions and how sort of philosophy applies to life sort of thing. And I was like, okay, this is pretty good. And then you just see a dog shit take in a newspaper. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. Strike one. And then you see another dog shit take and you go, okay, well, maybe it was the title editor. You see dog shit headline bullshit take number 3 and you go, I think this is just you. I think you just like being a radical centrist. Like you just love just annoying everyone. I think that's the brand. It's just making no one happy.
even the moniker radical centrist breaks my brain.
Just a great, like the people say far left, far right, far centrist. That's what Waleed Ali is. It's just, he loves institution. He's just horny for institutions. Anyway, for those who don't know who Waleed Ali is, this has been a riveting first 3 minutes of the podcast. Speaking of riveting, there was a meeting. It's a politics podcast, which occasionally strays into humor when you least expect it. The radicals. There were some radicals that met in Washington, the capital, this week.
From different sides.
From different sides of the political spectrum.
Coming together,
Come together right now over me. And
on me.
Well, depending on... Yep. So Donald Trump and Zohran Mamdani met in a cordial, if slightly stilted, White House meeting this week, which I was not expecting. I saw some clips that came out of this the other day, and I sent this to you guys. Like, is this AI? Is this real? Did this happen? It's getting scary good now, and I don't know, because I kind of feel as though each of these two guys is like, it's like matter and antimatter, and I kind of feel like if they shake hands, it might tear a hole in the fabric of the universe. Like, I'm slightly concerned that it's like a Large Hadron Collider situation, that if these two particles touch, it could tear open the fabric of space-time. And yet, it's real, and it happened, and it was strange.
Yeah, and it happened, and they touched a lot. I say they touched a lot. Mainly Trump touched him a lot. Like, it was, he was always like patting him on the, like, what did Mamdani say to him? Because, like, that's what my wife and I were discussing the other day. Like, what did he say to him? Because Trump is charmed by this man.
He's a charming guy.
Angrily, like, tweeting and like campaigning against Mamdani, calling him like a communist, jihadist monster.
He's a communist. He's terrible. He's gonna rip New York City apart.
Yeah,
and then he meets him in person.
I'm gonna pull all the funding. I'm gonna not let him do anything he's gonna do. This guy's a monster. And then they meet, and he's twirling his hair, and he's
oh my god, he's so cute. He's incredible. Look at those eyes. He reminds me of a young Arabic Bill Clinton. He's incredible.
Yeah, I would describe Trump as smitten. In this,
smoted.
Like, he is
smited.
He just has such a crush on this man. What?
It's it's a bit bizarre, and one of the stranger points of the meeting was when Zohran was asked to comment on the previous comments that he'd made about Donald Trump, where he overtly
they both said some spicy things about each other.
Yeah, this is just a proof that Twitter is not real life, because you get people together and they just can't help but just give each other big cuddles. But so there's this reporter. Well, just listen.
Your answer to Stephen Nelson, he asked about your comment calling the president a fascist, and your answer was, "Both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views." Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind. And then he gives us a little
call me
pat.
a fascist. Call me a fascist.
Baby, to you can call me whatever you want.
It's okay, handsome.
Look at him. He's young, he's handsome, he's robust. He's incredible.
We were saying before the show, we're like, why was he like this? Like, what's, like, how are the two people in different
I mean, the evergreen
the
question about Donald Trump is, why is he like this?
Why is he like this?
About any situation he's in. It's just like, is this how a person would respond?
I said it's almost like he's got like a personality disorder.
Yeah.
What did you say, George? Like, yes,
narcissist.
Yeah, he's a textbook malignant narcissist. He literally he was shitting all over Zohran, a minute ago, and now he wins, and he realizes how immensely popular he is. He goes, "I want to hang out with the popular kids. I'm popular, and maybe if I touch the popular kids, some will rub off on me."
It's so strange.
He has no values. It's literally just like, people like him, and if I'm next to him by the transitive property, I'll be liked. Like, it's just he just wants to be next to people who are liked. Like, it's a sickness.
I saw them meeting, and I was like, oh god, this is so uncomfortable for Mamdani, because like, obviously, I don't know, a mayor of somewhere probably, like of New York especially, might have to meet the president one day, and you can't just
turn
"Fuck
down,
you, Mr. President." Like, so like there they are shaking hands, and he says, "Thank you, Mr. President," and stuff. I'm like, oh, that must hurt.
Yeah,
oh, I'm so
that's gotta
sorry,
suck.
Mum. Like, like having to do that with like Hitler 2.0. But I did not expect Trump to be like, I like this guy. He's great. Isn't he's he's not so hard on the eyes. He said some things like he has some crazy ideas, but like, oh, maybe they might work, and maybe those ideas might change. Like, my ideas have changed. Like, people change. Like, he seems cool. Like, we're gonna work together.
Meanwhile, MAGA's like, stop.
What is happening?
It's this kind of horseshoe theory, right? Where it's like, the far left and the far right both kind of meet in this, sort of populist kind of weird center where it kind of ends up wrapping around a little bit back to closer to each other. But it's like, I've got some crazy ideas. I sent a Black Hawk into fucking Chicago last week. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. You just got to roll the dice, maybe.
He's also like, I'd like to live in a New York that this guy's like made better. Like, he seems to want to make New York a better place. That's cool. I'm like, what is happening?
I like kebabs. Maybe we can find some common ground.
He was quite keen. There was also a meeting he had a week before last with the Syrian president, who obviously is a former
ISIS member.
He's the hero of the revolution.
And he was spraying perfume on him, going, I bet your wife would love this. How many wives do you have? And the guy's like,
wives?
One. And he's like, only one.
I did not see this.
Similar sort of like real jovial, like slapping each other.
Oh, God, he was giving him Mohammed bin Salman a fucking hand job this week. This weird fucking doing hand stuff in the Oval Office that we did. He goes, I didn't even include the clip about that. There was a journalist that asked Mohammed bin Salman, the
Saudi Arabian,
the heir apparent to the Saudi Arabian kingdom. Hey, so you had a journalist murdered. What's up with that in a room full of journalists? Obviously, people are keen to. It's the one time I've seen journalists in the White House actually like grow a fucking spine.
Well,
and then Trump's like,
what opportunity are you going to get to ask the fucking
the Saudi crown prince a direct question? Yeah. And he goes, oh, come on, the guy you're talking about, he was a bad guy. Not everyone liked him. We all make mistakes. Don't embarrass our guest. And I was like, you're talking about the murder of it, like the explicit murder of a journalist who was then chopped up into bags and removed while his wife was standing outside thinking he was going in for a visa. And he's like, come on, let he who hasn't killed a dissident cast the first stone. I mean, that's such a rude thing to say to our guest. It's insane.
Crazy.
The whole thing, to be from that earlier this week to Zohran Mamdani the other day, is just like, I'm getting like news whiplash. Like I'm getting like I think I've got a spinal injury from everything that's been snapping back and forth this week. It's crazy.
Maybe they've just pumped him full of uppers and he's just in a really good mood and he's just happy
maybe
to be around
he
everyone.
loves
the Dexies are hitting.
Everybody.
He's just ready to go. Yeah, he's just firing on all cylinders, on all three cylinders.
Just some kind of like love potion on Trump, and he's just infatuated with everyone he meets.
He does seem happiest. I have to say, he does seem happiest when he's hanging out with dictators, palling around and just giving them high fives. And
he loves a good strong man.
Does you see Mamdani as like a dictator? Was like that victory?
He's a socialist Che Guevara over here. He's so strong, so muscular. Yeah. He just likes strong men.
Taken over New York so strongly.
Big league.
Like, does he see the like crown prince of Saudi Arabia and Mamdani is the same?
I actually think that, like, you're joking, but I actually think there's something to that. He likes people who are popular and powerful because he has no morals, because he has no internal value system. As a narcissist, I'm diagnosing him as a narcissist, not a doctor, but I've known enough. It really is about it's just a reverence for power and authority. And like Zohran has popular authority, having been elected, in a landslide. And MBS has like royal authority. It's the same thing of his weird love for the British royal family and things like that. He loves and like respects ultimate power. And he doesn't care about the value system that ascends one to ultimate power. He's just in love with power. And
if you've got it, you got it.
If you got it, you got it. And that's what he's always been about, that kind of like, proximity to power, right? And climbing the ladder.
Unless you're Marjorie Taylor Greene, in which case you're the worst.
Traitor Marjorie. Yeah. So there was a lot of what's the hue and cry this week about Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's been at odds with the president. She was one of the first Republican congressional House voices who was speaking up against him and saying that they were going to vote for the release of the Epstein files, her and Thomas Massie and a bunch of, a handful of other Republicans, which meant...
Side note.
Yeah.
Prior to that, obviously, she was a massive MAGA fan. And
this is the woman who...
complimentary of each other.
Yeah. This is the woman who said that the California wildfires were started by Jewish space lasers, right? So really on the far end of the far right of the political spectrum. And over the last, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks, there's been a lot of clips in social media of Marjorie Taylor Greene, I guess, back on her meds, saying that... just like normal things that people agree with. It's like there were every now and then when a clip from Tucker Carlson comes along, or he's like talking about how America's support of Israel, is
kind of a bit cooked.
Is a bit cooked, and like they're supporting of the potential genocide in Gaza was not good. And I'm like, God, I just hate the internet where it's like every couple of weeks I'm like forced to agree with fucking Tucker Carlson. Like, I just hate it. So, and there's been a lot of that with Marjorie Taylor Greene this week saying, Trump has basically been sort of protecting pedophiles and...
not releasing
there's one thing,
just saying sane shit, which is not what I'm used to out of Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I don't like it. It's breaking the simulation, and I don't like it.
It's about a hierarchy. So, there's lefty, like in terms of what people hate more. If you're a MAGA Republican, you can there's the lefty Democrat socialist weasels, and then above that, in terms of the hate scale, are pedophiles. Pedophiles are always at the top.
Pedophiles are only just above Democrats and adjacent to, in their mind.
If you want to, enemy of the enemy is my friend.
Well, the thing is, it's like every now and then she'll say sane, something that sounds sane, but you got to remember and she talks about it in this video that we're about to play. We're not going to play the whole thing, but she talks about her conservative bona fides, about how she's the best conservative ever, and she's such a nativist that she voted against H-1 visas that Trump was for and all this sort of stuff, which allows talent to come into the United States for the explicit purposes of working. She's such an America First conservative that she is more conservative than Donald Trump on a lot of things. So that was the argument that she's making. So it's she's certainly not a hero of the socialist revolution now just because she said a couple of sane things about the Epstein files. But it's been a bizarre kind of about face for her, and she's been openly critical of Donald Trump in the last couple of weeks, despite being historically one of his most ardent supporters. And he's been saying things like he's going to, endorse people against her, and he's going to, run people to out-primary her in the next election, all this sort of stuff, being called a traitor for the stuff that she said about him and all this sort of stuff, about his stance on the Epstein files, which I don't know if we talked about this last week. So that Donald Trump said he was going to support that because he realized he was going to lose the vote on the Epstein files. And so it sailed through the House and the Senate. He's signed it, but there's now a caveat that says it can't it's anything that's to do with ongoing investigations is going to be redacted. It's up to the Justice Department. So I was like, so we're at square one. But
it was always going to be unclassified stuff. Yes. So conveniently, let's classify everything.
Anything with the word Donald and or Trump will be classified. So that's where all that is. Anyway, so that's sailed through Congress. He signed it. We'll see what actually happens within 30 days on that. But Marjorie Taylor Greene has been a very vocal, proponent of pushing this and getting it to past the point where they had the numbers where Trump couldn't deny it, and that's when he swung himself in support of it, right? When he knew he was going to lose. So as a result of all this online backlash and sort of response from the MAGA base against Marjorie Taylor Greene, she has announced this week that she is actually retiring, not just from the Republican Party, but from Congress altogether. And so there's a little clip of her speaking about it. I'll spare you guys the first like 6 minutes or so because it's just how her saying how good of a fucking arch conservative she is. But we'll sort of pick back up at the sort of 6 minutes mark and just kind of listen to the last couple minutes where she's kind of like talks about like, now that I've proven my conservative bona fides, here's why Trump is a piece of shit. So we'll focus on the latter half.
We should be able to vote our conscience and represent our district's interests because our job title is literally representative. America first should mean America first and only Americans first, with no other foreign country ever being attached to America first in our halls of government. Standing up for American women who were raped at 14 years old, trafficked and used by rich, powerful men should not result in me being called a traitor and threatened by the President of the United States, whom I fought for. However, while yes, hurtful, my heart remains filled with joy, my life is filled with happiness, and my true convictions remain unchanged because my self-worth is not defined by a man, but instead by God who created everything in existence. You see, I have never valued power, titles, or attention in spite of all the wrong assumptions about me. I do not cling to those things because they are meaningless and empty traps that hold too many people in Washington. I believe in term limits and do not think Congress should be a lifelong career or an assisted living facility. My only goal and desire has ever been to hold the Republican Party accountable for the promises it makes to the American people and put America first. And I have fought against Democrats' damaging policies like the Green New Deal, wide open, deadly, unsafe border policies, and the trans agenda on children and against women. With that has brought years of non-stop, never-ending personal attacks, death threats, lawfare, ridiculous slander and lies about me that most people could never withstand even for a single day. It has been unfair and wrong, not only to me, but especially to my family, but it's been wrong to my district as well. I have too much self-respect and dignity. I love my family way too much, and I do not want my sweet district to have to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president that we all fought for, only to fight and win my election while Republicans will likely lose the midterms, and in turn be expected to defend the president against impeachment after he hatefully dumped tens of millions of dollars against me and tried to destroy me. It's all so absurd and completely unserious. I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better. If I am cast aside by the president and the MAGA political machine and replaced by neocons, big pharma, big tech, military-industrial war complex, foreign leaders, and the elite donor class that can never, ever relate to real Americans, then many common Americans have been cast aside and replaced as well. There is no plan to save the world or a 4D chess game being played. When common American people realize and understand that the political industrial complex of both parties is ripping this country apart, that not one elected leader like me is able to stop Washington's machine from gradually destroying our country, and instead the reality is that they, common Americans, the people, possess the real power over Washington, then I'll be here by their side to rebuild it. Until.
Yeah, so I don't need a man to make me feel good.
Yeah, wow. I mean, had to get a little dig at the trans community in there.
Hey, it's so weird because, I was like, okay, you had me there for a minute, Marjorie, and then she's like, and then the trans kids with their gender reassignment surgery. I was like, oh, yeah, she's back. There she is. And it's so funny, that horseshoe theory that we were talking about before, because she's like, and the broken system of politics that divides the Americans against one. I was like, fuck, she keeps like drifting into making sense. This is fucking me up.
Yeah, that's crazy. And also just this little sidebar there, when she said, jumped out at me when she said like that I will not be like, I will not be defined by a man. Instead, I am defined by God. And I was like, aha, but you are someone, I reckon if someone said God is a woman in front of you, you'd lose your fucking shit.
Yeah, I mean, look how many crucifixes there are on the Christmas tree behind her. Of course she thinks God is a man.
Yeah, I think we need to think about that sentence a little bit there, Marjorie.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like I think it's probably fair enough from a personal decision. Like I wouldn't want to stick around either. But
and I think the real reasoning behind it is because she's thinking that there's going to be a blue wave, and that Democrats are going to sweep the midterms, and she's probably going to lose their fucking seat anyways, right? So it's like, well, let's just get out of here.
I wouldn't say it's the end of Marjorie Taylor Greene though. She strikes me as the kind of woman that if she's
a phoenix, she'll rise from the ashes.
Yeah. Still, watch that space.
I would not be surprised if she tried to make a run for the president next time around. I think that's what I mean. And I think part of this is maybe a governor of Georgia or something like that. Yeah, you could see something like that happening where she's kind of like she's kind of split from the MAGA leadership, but maybe she's positioning herself to be more closely aligned with the MAGA base and be like, I'm the real MAGA successor as opposed to JD Vance, who's like a fake. That's the sort of dynamic I see sort of maybe playing out. But it's pretty weird. I mean, and what it shows is a kind of a fracturing of the MAGA power base, which is something we've been talking about, since the whole sort of Charlie Kirk assassination and the sort of the bust up over Israel.
Factions.
The sort of factions. You've got the Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, kind of like nativist racist, like Groyper types. And maybe it's not fair to lump Tucker Carlson in, but he's sympathetic to that worldview, I'd say. After that hot stone massage he gave Nick Fuentes on his podcast a couple of weeks ago. So there's that kind of wing where it's like anti-Israel, but for the wrong reasons because they're racists. And then there's the other wing, which is like the sort of America First kind of, stuff, but America First plus Israel.
Isolation.
So that's more the isolation wing is more the Tucker Carlson side. Like we shouldn't be elsewhere, like not at all. And then there's a report somewhere that someone talked about, like they reckon 30 to 40% of the staffers, Republican staffers on the Hill at the moment are like young men who identify as part of this like Groyper far right, neo-Nazi group essentially.
Oh dear.
And and then there's the MAGA base, which as we currently understand it, which is kind of like this populist sort of, Donald Trump said he was going to focus on cost of living and lowering our bills. And we hate migrants, but that's kind of like extra, like I don't get up in the morning to hate migrants is their view sort of thing, but it's like, it's nice when it happens. It's a little cherry on top. And so there's kind of like the Steve Bannon wing and the Charlie Kirk thing. Charlie Kirk was sort of migrating over to a less pro-Israel sort of perspective in his later months, and so there's been
the Christian base as well.
The Christian nationalist base is like sort of interrelated. So the Venn diagram of all of these, there's a lot of overlap between these various different factions in the MAGA power base. But I guess what we're seeing, particularly as a result of the Epstein files, is that this QAnon hardcore conspiracy theory base that is kind of personified by someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene is getting, especially with all the, increasing sort of disclosures around the Epstein files and the emails and all the sort of shit that's coming out, are getting like increasingly dissatisfied with Trump. And you're starting to see it really affect his polling. He's the least popular that he's ever been. His polling is in the 30s, the 1930s. And, his base of support is kind of splintering and fracturing in ways that up until this point have been pretty unprecedented. Like he's been a force in political life for 10 years now. And I've never seen major components of the Republican, apparatus turn against him in any way. They've always been very afraid of him. But I think now, because he's a lame duck, everyone knows he's not going to get elected again. The man's, advanced in his age and swollen in his cankles. Like he physically cannot run physically in a room or for another term. So I think some of his power base maybe is starting to erode and starting to look to the next term of like who's going to be the successor to Trump. And I think that's causing some sort of fault lines to start appearing in this power base now.
It's always the way it goes with any sort of
not this
popular
soon,
figure.
Though it's generally like in the last year of the second term where people start to go, okay, he's a lame duck.
I just mean generally in history that sort
true.
of there is someone like Alexander the Great or whatever that's able to unite
the empire,
the world,
the
empire,
evil galactic empire.
And then once that
once he dies, then the whole thing fractures. Yeah, same thing with Caesar and you look at Kublai Khan over in Mongolia and stuff. What happens when Genghis Khan dies is the empire basically gets carved up amongst his toadies because no one can really agree on who the successor is. There's all this like factional infighting, right? So
America becomes like Europe. There's just a whole bunch of countries in this.
Yeah, it's less
in this area.
Just like the 1700s. The 1750s are back, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. It's less the United States of the America and more of the sort of loosely defined coalition of Americas. So it's interesting. I wonder what it augurs for the Republicans going forward if one of their chief sort of wackadoos is gone, but we'll see.
Still got a few years left, and in that time, the US is going to try,
a few years left of the world, or what are you referring specifically?
Just everything.
I've got concerns.
Ignore. The US is trying to wrap up the war in Ukraine by any means necessary.
I'm going to get in there. I'm going to solve it in one day. It's going to be incredible. I got this incredible plan. One day, one meeting in there with him, and I'll get it solved.
So it's kind of a bit like deja vu because they did this like 4 months ago where the US has come up with a peace plan. Guys, they've solved it. They fixed it. They got a 28-point peace plan.
I got my ambassador to everything, Steve Witkoff, to put something in ChatGPT. It's incredible.
So they've previously, they've had a peace plan and they were like, accept the peace plan, Ukraine, or we're going to stop giving you weapons. And Ukraine's like, no. And then, I don't know, for whatever happened,
there was a plan. There was a plan that the Americans put forward, and the Ukraine's like, great, let's go with this. And then Russia rejected it as well because it wasn't maximalist enough for them, even though it was like an agreement that was entirely in their favor.
Yeah, and then so basically, over the last 3 months, the US has been back to sort of the standard talking points of, Russia, need to like come to the table, and Russia are bad, and we're going to keep helping Ukraine. So I thought, okay, maybe the fact that Vladimir Putin's basically ignored Trump,
and has been stalling for a year,
maybe that's like normalized this like sort of crazy theory that JD Vance and all the other isolationists, Pete Hegseth and other people have been pushing, which is just to get out. But no, it hasn't. So basically, they've now put together this 28-point peace plan. The Russians are like, not bad, because it's basically just the Russian
talking points. It's a Russian list of demands, including that Russia would surrender all of the Donbass. Russia would be the official language of Ukraine, and Vladimir Zelensky has to suck his own dick. Like it's just like such a laborious list of completely unreasonable demands, which would amount to unconditional surrender. Like it's just it's crazy.
It would basically the limits on the Ukrainian armed forces. Basically, the only thing that Ukraine gets out of this is a vague security guarantee, which is that
it worked for them in the 90s. Flawless security guarantee that they got in the 90s. That worked out well for them, didn't it?
Basically, if Russia were to invade Ukraine, a robust and coordinated military response would occur.
Oh, they used the word robust.
Sanctions.
Well, it must be robust. If they use the word robust, it must mean something.
Well, and where does the robust support come from in this vague plan? Is it NATO?
Tom, shut the fuck up.
I think the concept is that that NATO or the US would step in, but like,
because then haven't they effectively joined NATO? Then,
given them a NATO guarantee? Isn't that the whole thing? Article 5 of NATO is now you're a member of NATO. Attack against one is an attack against all. Like, isn't that NATO? Isn't that what NATO is?
And isn't that Putin's worst nightmare?
Yes.
So Yeah, I mean, Zelensky's basically come out and basically said to the country, like, we've got a choice. We can accept this dog shit deal and just basically fuck ourselves, or we can, because it's the other thing the US has said. The US has said, if you don't accept this, we're going to withdraw support, like intelligence sharing, funding.
I mean, they have been on and off doing that over this last year, so I don't know how much of a hit that's actually going to... I mean, the Europeans are still very much in support, so...
The intelligence stuff is absolutely vital. That if they don't have that intel, that
for targeting imagery, and all that sort of stuff,
yeah. If they don't know what's going on the battlefield, they will feel that. So like, despite the fact that the Europe has stepped up in terms of its support.
And there was that weird thing where they said the Europeans can buy stuff from us, the Americans, and will allow it to go to the Ukrainians. And there's been a lot of
they've been doing that.
They've
been doing that. They've been doing that anyway. But I guess so. Zelensky's like sort of put that to the nation, but I don't really know. What decision they'll go with. I don't know if Russia's specifically given a response to this yet, but. The concept.
I imagine they're in favour. Given it's a Russian list of demands.
There are several points, that refer to Russia being brought back from isolation, with Russia to be reintegrated into the global economy, invited back to the G8.
Oh, thank God!
So it's
thank God.
Yeah,
I was looking around the G8, going, "Oh, where's my buddies? Where's Russia? Who am I going to do vodka shots with at the? At the hotel bar."
The fact is, like, yes, Ukraine's going to have to give up something. But
sure, it seems like, that way, but this seems too much.
28 points of something is
including like areas that have not been conquered by the Russians, like preemptively giving them up. It's like, well, yeah, the Russians are advancing, but at this rate, it's going to take them years and years to fully conquer the amount of territory that we would give up with this deal. So
it's it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't set conditions for an actual basis of peace. It actually will set conditions for either Russia to have another go or Ukraine just to be unsatisfied with it and angry. Everything
I've ever read about negotiation is that you need to have both parties come to an agreement that, satisfies or dissatisfies both of them equally to a large extent. Right, that's the famous line. That how do you know you've had a good negotiation is when both sides feel as though they got fucked. Right, like it doesn't create the conditions for an enduring peace if one side is happy and the other side is not happy. Like you look at the Good Friday Accords. What happened in the UK when they finally came to an armistice agreement with the IRA.
The IRA,
right? And what it took to bring that conflict to a close, and some things needed to be ceded to both sides, and that's how you create the conditions for an enduring peace. You can't go one side has to unconditionally surrender and hope for the best, because like to the Ukrainians it's an existential threat. The equation to them is like surrender or die, and I don't know if you know much about Eastern Europeans. They're not really fond of surrendering. They will throw many, many men into the meat grinder before they surrender, as evidenced by the Soviet Union in the Second World War. That was kind of their advantage, is that they would just send wave after wave of their own men into the meat grinders in order to max out the kill count. And to win.
I mean, Ukraine is struggling now for manpower. Like they've kind of running out of.
They have been since the start. Russia is a significantly larger country with significantly more resources. This has always been the dynamic that in a war of attrition, and this is what Putin knows, in a war of attrition between the two countries, Russia will win eventually. But how many rivers of blood need to be created to create the context for that eventual victory is, up for some debate.
The other thing that Putin is wrestling with at the moment is, well, eventually this war will end and I'm going to have several 100,000 people who are now military trained and probably angry with me coming back to live within Russia.
Hence why he's flying drones over Poland and doing all these other sort of provocative things as well, because this is the thing with expansionist nationalism, as Hitler learned, once you pop, you can't stop. Because, as you say, you don't want a bunch of military trained guys that are pissed off with you coming back home to roost going, hey, maybe this Putin guy's no good. So what do? You send them off into other theaters to, keep the empire expanding. Alexander the Great, which we referred to before, never went home. It just kept expanding because if you go home, the party's over, right?
Anyway, but so we should have some sort of response to that, I think, over the next week. But I feel like the Ukrainians will just reject it and probably go back to Europe and put their hand out for more. But we'll see.
The Europeans feel this in a way that is more existential than the United States. Yeah, I remember speaking with colleagues in the UK being like, and they're like, oh, Europe's at war. Like, we're at war. This is when this first kicked off. And I was like, oh, yeah, I don't know if it's quite, but to their mind, like Russia it's a neighbor.
It's an existential threat. Yeah.
It's an existential threat. They really do believe that there's this expansionist, kind of westward threat from the Russians. That's the whole reason NATO exists, right? And people say, oh, NATO was too expansionist and that's what forced Putin's hand, which is a Russian talking point because obviously NATO was right to do that because look at what happened. Like,
yeah.
NATO was too expansionist, was too aggressive. It's like, well, clearly for good reason because Russia's now invading the rest of Europe. So, it actually, Russia doing this has forced countries like, like Finland and other kind of, countries in Eastern Europe to join NATO because of the threat that they feel that Russia poses with their, sort of expansionist ideals, which is crazy because Russia's one of the biggest fucking countries in the whole world. Why do you need an extra slice of the Ukraine? It makes no sense to me. Other than from like a nationalist rah standpoint, right?
Yeah, keep yourself scary.
Mm.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the international news for this week. And moving back locally, the states and the federal government are arguing about health funding again.
Yeah, it seems to be a topic that seems to pop up every now and again. So. The federal government is putting together a new funding agreement for the funding of hospitals. They want to put together, I think it was like 42.5% of the funding that goes towards hospitals, with states to make up the remainder. But of course, 42.5% of what is the chief question, because as you may know, the hospital system in New South Wales and other states has been under some strain. I remember there was a report from the ABC a couple of months ago which basically said that certain portions of the New South Wales health system were on the brink of collapse. And there's been this radical reimagining of, the expanded funding requirements of what's required of the Australian healthcare system to keep it functioning. Ever since the pandemic, I feel like there's been a lot of strain on the healthcare system and it has not ever really let up since then. I mean, my experience of trying to find a GP when my son's been sick or something like that, or going to a hospital, the few times that we've been to a hospital, it's been woeful. Sort of 8-hour waits and ridiculous kind of, lead times in terms of getting in to see a GP bulk billing rates are flatlining despite additional, $3.6 billion that Labor's pumped into the healthcare system, and new requirements around like, oh, you'll get extra bonuses if you bulk bill for XYZ cohorts and all this sort of stuff, which is meant to sort of pump up the system, doesn't seem to be having any sort of effect in terms of the declining bulk billing rate. So I would say it's fair to say that the Australian healthcare system is in crisis and the federal government, as it turns out, does not want to pay for that because it's expensive.
Well, this is despite a 2023 deal between the Commonwealth and the states that the states keep referring to. And I think it's kind of to do with the terms of the deal in terms of like the length. Because at the moment, like the 2023 deal, I'm going to sort of just fluff this because I haven't read it properly, but the National Cabinet agreed that the Commonwealth would lift its funding share to 42.5%, as George said, and then by the end of the decade, and then to 45% by 2035. But the states have since accused the federal government of trying to walk back that commitment and are currently relying on an interim 1-year funding top-up to tide them over as they negotiate the long overdue 5-year deal. So at the moment, they're trying to negotiate this 5-year deal. But the federal government's like, no, it's a 1-year deal, take it or leave it, and it's less than sort of what the states actually need.
It's healthcare spending and entitlement spending make up huge portions of the government's budget, right? Along with military spending and other things. So
always the military spending.
It's only 2% of GDP though.
We've got to go up to 5%. We're actually spending $400 billion on the submarines now. It's no fucking big deal. But as soon as it comes to anything, what people should do is go into their GP and say they identify as a submarine, and then all of a sudden there'll be unlimited money in the banana stand for those sorts of issues. When it comes to military spending, it's always a question of what we must do and how it must be done, and not where this money is coming from. But as soon as it comes to anything that might help people, all of a sudden the government's turning out its pockets going, there's no money. Where's all the money going to go? How are we going to pay for it? So how are you going to pay for the fucking submarines? Why is that never a question?
So the federal government
has the sniffles.
Could you imagine if we invested $400 billion into health and education over the next 10 years as opposed to submarines, the kind of effect that would have on the sort of cost of living life experience of the Australian populace. But I don't know. That's just one military hardware project, by the way. That's one. Is that $400 billion. And that started at $300 billion and went to $350 billion, $385 billion, $400 billion. So you can imagine by the time it's actually delivered, this fucking mega project,
$1 trillion.
It's going to be $500 billion, $600 billion by the time it actually gets delivered, right? So
the federal government has, in this case, they are offering an additional $20 billion over 5 years, billion with a B.
So an extra,
I think that's less.
$5 billion a year spread across all the states.
Yeah.
It's actually not that much money when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like healthcare,
and it's less than sort of what they wanted.
Yeah.
And I guess the thing with the Australian, so for people who are overseas and who don't understand the Australian Federation, the states are responsible for healthcare under the Constitution. So technically, the Australian government doesn't actually have to give them anything. However, the Australian government is responsible for tax revenue.
Yes.
So,
and considering that, the more populous states like New South Wales, Victoria contribute large amounts of taxation revenue because of all their economic activity, there's always this argument between the states as to how much of that revenue is going to come back to the states in the form of, federal monies, right? And particularly Western Australia, because of all their mining revenues and all this sort of stuff, seems to contribute an outsized amount of money into the economy compared to what they get back. So there's always a bit of an argument around these sort of funding agreements as to like who gets what. But yeah, as you say, Adam, yes, states are responsible for funding hospitals and healthcare, but
and for operationalizing it and running it, and and the legislation that.
But all the money comes from the federal government ultimately. So
yes.
or the majority of it at least. So it's kind of like, okay, well, you guys need to cooperate on this in order to actually reach an agreement. Like, yes, that's what it says in the Constitution, but like, okay, well, that's fine. We'll withhold all our GST revenue and then we'll pay for it all ourselves. Like, it's a real easy solution there, right?
It's one of those things where I'm like, I reckon we need it. Like, I know that's something that's in the Constitution, but it's one of those things where it's like, could we just do an amendment to just do a
federalized approach? Yeah,
just federalize it. Like, I don't see the point anymore of that being. I mean, it made sense when the Constitution was written. It's like the Americans, right? Like things that made sense in 1901 don't necessarily make sense in 2025.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I just think the part that kicked all this off, that it just feels kind of sketchy. In that earlier in the week, Albanese, our prime minister, wrote to the states, being like, if you want this deal that if you want this deal that we said previously of the 42.5% by 2030, etc., you guys kind of need to rein in your spending. You need to make the amount that it costs to run healthcare lower.
42.5% of what?
With
yes, as I said.
With the subtext, being that 42.5% of a lower number. They're still making the 42.5% pledge, but it's of a smaller number, so it's less money, and it's a real dick move. That's why the premiers
it's not what you expect to see out of a Labor government in particular. Like this, the way this has been approached. And the kind of policy platform seems more akin to like a Morrison government initiative where it's like, yeah, we'll give you some funding, but you got to fucking rein in your, Joe Hockey, poor people don't drive. Like you got to rein in your expenses, just really tighten the belt. Like that feels more like a Liberal government policy than it does a Labor government policy. I understand they're trying to balance, sort of the expectations around the budget and their spending. They're trying to be sort of moderate and fairly conservative with their spending because they're aware that there are challenges on the horizon with the budget over the next couple of years based on revenue projections and all this sort of stuff. Like, yes, they had a surplus in their first couple of years, but they like I have seen the projections and see that over the next couple of years it's going into the red based on all the spending commitments that we've made. And so they want to try and be careful with how they allocate money. But there's certain things I kind of think that as a Labor government, you're obliged to prioritize. People expect you to prioritize, health and education being one of them, or ones of them. And getting this kind of aggressive pushback from the federal government on healthcare spending is, I don't think, what most people voted for when they voted for a Labor government, right? So it's sort of a bit at odds with their stated positions on the issue.
And it is interesting with the bulk billing rates sort of falling a little bit. And that's despite some of the extra investments they've made.
Continuing to decline. Yeah. It's not, what they've done has not improved. And I think, to speak to that a little bit, I think that's largely to do with sort of cost of living crisis and inflation that we've had over the last couple of years, where the cost of everything is going up. The cost of running a GP, as someone who sold into GP clinics previously and understands the pressures of GP clinics, for most of them, it does not make sense to be bulk billing anymore, where they get a flat rate from the government and that's it. A lot of clinics have had to move to mixed billing or even private billing in order to just guarantee their costs, to keep paying the increases on their staff, the increases on the software, like their increases on their rent. Like, if all of those inputs to a business increase in cost, or where are they going to find that extra money? Like, you can't just put a freeze on the bulk billing rate as the previous Liberal government did and expect it's not going to have flow-on effects to the amount of services that people can provide for that money. If the cost of everything keeps going up and the money doesn't also go up alongside with it, it's like, well, so that money's going to come out of someone's pocket. And GPs, doctors, don't like the money coming out of their pockets, the people who own and run these clinics, the principals. So where's it going to come out of? Well, it's going to come out of consumers' pockets. And that means fewer people getting bulk billed medical services in this country, which, as we know, has a number of negative downstream effects in terms of people's health and preventative healthcare. If you have an issue with your heart and you go to your GP and you catch it early, that is much less expensive to the system than if you ignore it because you can't afford to go to the doctor and then keel over and have a heart attack and then need to go to emergency care and get a stent put in and have an emergency surgery, which is tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cost to the healthcare system, rather than getting a statin 5 years ago, which cost them a GP visit and nothing else, right? So there's all these flow-on effects to if you don't fund the system properly, which have negative consequences overall for the budget long term. So I don't know really what they think they're doing with this. It doesn't quite make sense to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, the measures that they put in place began in 2023, and then the last election, they promised. The goal is to get to 90% bulk billing rates by 2030.
That was a big thing for them, is that we're investing all this money into the system to bring the bulk billing rates up, and it hasn't worked.
Yeah. So that only went into effect earlier this month. So the current stats, that wouldn't have had an effect yet. So the proof will be in the pudding over the next, I don't know, few months, several months, as to whether or not that does anything.
Yeah.
Now, at the time when this policy was announced, which the coalition matched, by the way, in their election promises.
Matchy, because we also want to win the election. So whatever happens, we'll go along with it as well.
The Royal Australian College of General Practitioners was a bit sceptical about this. So it'll be interesting.
About which part?
About whether or not the way that the policy was put together would actually achieve its stated outcome.
Yeah.
So anyway, interesting. Like it's obviously, it's been a priority for the government, but whether or not it's, they've gone about it the right way, and whether or not they're tackling the economic inputs that are causing a lot of these problems in the right way, I don't know. But
I'm also aware that the need for healthcare has increased. Like, since the pandemic, there have been really elevated rates of, mental health care issues and things like that don't seem in line with previous sort of trajectories. Like, I don't know if it's a direct result of the pandemic. It's just put the whole healthcare system under strain and it's just never recovered, or if people are sicker than they used to be. The demands of the healthcare system are just increasing. And so to deliver the same level of care with the same level, of resources under the conditions of increasing demand is just like not physically possible. I don't quite know, but I'm also aware that other countries are experiencing the same thing. The NHS in the UK has also experienced these same kinds of increases in, mental health care and other kinds of healthcare demands, people dealing with long COVID and other stuff. Who knows what the long-term ripple effects of COVID are going to be. But it seems like we are entering a stage, maybe it's an aging population thing, but it seems like the demands of the healthcare systems that we know of around the world are increasing. And so there needs to be a commensurate increase in funding, but also increase in other kinds of support and infrastructure.
Populations are growing as well. So that's more input, more demand on the system. You've got to have
more people.
I don't necessarily know that for every. So Melbourne, is to take a local example, Melbourne's grown by 100,000 people every year for the last
it's bigger than Sydney
decade
now, right?
or more. Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
But I don't know whether they've built a commensurate number of hospitals.
They've not.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there has been building, but you see these communities on the outskirts of Melbourne, which are the ticky-tacky little boxes on the hillside, and you look there and you look around, it's just suburban wasteland. There's nothing. There isn't a Woolies, there isn't parks, there's not. It's just like suburbia as far as the eye can see. Yeah. And I think
if you have a heart problem, you're still going to the Alfred.
Someone's got to go to the hospital. Yeah, like you keel over, you get hit by a car, you still got to go to the hospital, right? So if you're not building all the state governments are happy to cash the checks from all of the increased land value and all these new taxpayers paying into the system with stamp duty and consumption tax and all this sort of stuff. They're happy to cash the checks when the money comes in, but they're not really willing to build the services that are needed to support those people in these far-flung, sort of ex-urban communities to give them the support that they need, that you would expect out of being a citizen in a major metropolitan centre, right? So I don't know where that dynamic... And with all of that said, the Victorian government budget is languishing in terms of the amount of debt that we're accruing over time with all these major infrastructure projects, which need to happen, but also are running over cost and over time and over budget and costing the state, hundreds of millions of dollars. And in the case of high interest rates, that debt is now costing us so much more than it did during the pandemic when interest rates were at near zero, effectively. So I don't know. I'm a little nervous about what's going to happen over the next couple of years around how we keep providing services equitably to the communities in which people are. Like it seems like things are sort of coming apart at the seams a little bit.
Don't worry about it.
Well, yeah, it'll be fun be fun to watch, I guess. Just don't worry about it.
Don't worry, the Nazis have got a solution.
a final solution, if you will. Tell me about the neo-Nazis. As our senior neo-Nazi correspondent, Adam, please tell me what's going on with the neo-Nazis this week.
Do I like that title? I don't think I like that title.
You're in the black t-shirt and the mustache. So
actually.
You got a bit of a Thomas Sewell vibe going on there, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, you just got a haircut. Don't cut it too short.
Oh, my God. I'm looking at some of these photos and I want to vomit. Anyway,
these are your peers, Adam. Yeah, you are the one of us. You are the one who looks the most like them. So you're the senior neo-Nazi correspondent.
Please do not say they're my peers. Jesus
Just
Christ.
Get a pair of speed dealer sunglasses and you'd fit right in. You can go undercover.
Basically, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but there was a Nazi protest outside New South Wales Parliament. And since then, there's been bunch of sort of actions taken since then.
Yeah, a bit of a shitstorm.
Bit of a post-Nazi rally scrambling, I would say, from the government.
I mean, Tom, you might know more about this than I do, as you someone who lives in New South Wales. But basically, they've been trying to get together the company or the group that sort of put this together. So it's
called White Australia.
White Australia, right?
I wonder what their aims and intentions are. White Australia,
also known as the National Socialist Network.
Where does that name? Where does that sound familiar? National Socialists. What does that remind me of?
They're having a bit of a hard time the moment, though, apparently, because government and businesses, as it turns out, don't like being associated with Nazis.
Yeah.
And
until they run the government.
until they run the government.
Or if you're X.com.
Or if you're X.com. The banks that hold accounts for a lot of these organizations have been cancelling and freezing the accounts of all of these people that are a part of this group.
Yeah, I was going to say their personal accounts. Like, these aren't just
accounts.
Like business accounts.
Yeah,
so a guy, what's his name? Jack Eltis, who is proclaimed to be the third in command of the NSN, whatever that means.
A part-time air conditioning mechanic from Northwest Sydney. So that's
28-year-old guy.
This is your high caliber leadership is a part-time HVAC mechanic. Not that there's anything wrong with being a mechanic, but it's just like I wouldn't necessarily describe him as management material. But yeah, anyway, go on.
But I mean, I guess especially since maybe he is management material. He's clearly managing a Nazi organization.
Yeah, it's not the sort of thing you put on your resume, though, is it?
No.
He's managing his own small business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, so he's had his personal accounts frozen just this week. He is apparently posted on like Telegram or whatever, one of these like super secret fucking social media
Nazi
places
hubs.
are saying that like all my cards are fully frozen, debanked again from another bank. So this isn't the first time, which I think is kind of a who keeps opening accounts for these people? Is there a system to check this? Like I feel cancel my account once for being a Nazi.
Shame on you.
I guess shame on you. But then when the other banks, like, isn't there a database or something? Like, surely if I get cancelled by Combank and then I go to NAB and go, I'd like to open a bank account, surely there's some kind of communication maybe across for the cancellations for association with terrorism or something. Surely is
in its
shared.
In its terms of conditions, banks often have a clause that allows them to close accounts for patrons that have been used to, quote, defame, harass, or threaten any person or promote violence against any person, which I feel like is a clause that has been underutilized. Maybe I don't think I've ever heard of banks freezing the personal accounts of people based on their political views before in Australia. And whilst I don't love that precedent, I do love it when it happens to Nazis. So I'm a little bit conflicted as to...
Whoa, yeah. So... Yeah, apparently, so the ABC spoke to Jack Eltis, which I also find odd that there's just like, oh, let's reach out to comment from these Nazis.
Oh, hi, it's the ABC. Just wondering if you had a comment about you being a fucking Nazi piece of shit and getting your bank account.
Yeah, like let's
anyway, call me on
neo-Nazis. Yeah, let's interview these neo-Nazis like they're regular people.
It's Triple J's hack. We've got Blair Cottrell on today to talk about the benefits of neo-Nazism. Blair, why don't you tell us how white people are supreme?
Yeah. So the ABC spoke to Mr. Eltis, and he said it was the third time he's been debanked, as he put it. And they also mentioned that Thomas Sewell, who is the head of the NSN in Australia, who has been expelled from 9 separate banks. I'd be running out of banks that I'm aware of by the time I get to 9. Like,
donate
I know there's the
to our Bendigo bank link,
like
BSB number.
Yeah, just getting down to all that sort of stuff. They've also had their donations platform stripped. Well, this happened back in October, apparently. But yeah, on the NSN website, they had their donations ability stripped because the company Stripe, that does like the payment processing, also withdrew its services.
I've heard of that before,
being
of like
hey,
PayPal and payment, Stripe and payments processors being like, yeah, well, we're not going to process money for.
We're not going to be associated with this,
which is,
and we've seen them do that for like pornography and sex work and stuff as well, like payment platforms.
I don't know. It's just a little bit funny that like HSBC in, I can't forget which country it was in South America, literally had like specific banks like loading docks augmented so that drug cartels could back up trucks of cash into the bank. Like clearly international finance doesn't have a problem with criminals. So it's interesting that they're willing to sort of, go against Nazis. I mean, it's good. We obviously not a fan of Nazis on this show, but it's interesting.
I also love, so since Stripe, the processing platform, got withdrawn so they couldn't take donations, they're encouraging their supporters to send cash in envelopes to a P.O. box.
Nothing
if you
sus.
still want to donate
Guys,
to this company that keeps having all its abilities stripped from it.
Not to give advice to neo-Nazis, but there's this thing called cryptocurrency that would be a much better way. I'm just saying that, like, okay, I won't say anything, but like, it's there's envelopes full of cash seems like not the most efficient way to. Not that I'm telling you how to run a railroad, but it's like it just seems like not the best use of your money. By the way, Adam, this is a picture of Thomas Sewell current day with, I would say, sporting the exact same kind of mustache that you are. So I reckon if you shave your head, you're in there, buddy. You're in.
November, man. Come on, I'm doing it for good cause.
He's not doing it for November.
And then I think another great kicker of this, I love the way this article like flows from the ABC. So yes, they're talking to these Nazis, but also it's very funny when it says like, they're stripped from, we have to accept money in envelopes to a P.O. box. They spoke to another person from the NSN named Joel Davis, who was quoted as saying, "We don't have that much money. No one is really getting paid." Joel Davis told the ABC on Wednesday. Mr. Davis was arrested by the AFP on Thursday. The next day, there was a big operation in Bondi here in Sydney, and they arrested this guy. I don't know where he ranks in the NSN, but so just the next day.
What I find interesting, so they're not stupid. Like, I mean, apart from the crypto thing, like that's pretty obvious, but like the way they want to get around it.
Well, like aside from being Nazis,
registering,
like they're stupid for being Nazis, but yes, go on.
Yeah. The way they want to get around it is by registering as a political party. And they've now apparently got the 1,500 signatures. Because if you're a political party, you get certain protections, around.
What was crazy about this to me, sorry to interrupt, was that there was articles in the main, after that rally. I shouldn't have done it. I'm sorry, but I have thoughts and I need to get them out before they go away. In the fallout of the Nazi rally in front of Parliament in New South Wales the other week, there were a lot of articles in the mainstream media talking about this neo-Nazi group and basically essentially giving them free publicity, as far as I can tell, where they were talking about their intention to become a political party. And said that the way that we get members to register is online, and then like essentially saying this is how many signatures they've got, this is how many they would need to become a political party, essentially acting as an advertisement for people who read these articles online to go, oh yeah, that sounds like a pretty good idea. It's essentially functioning as, earned media advertisement for this Nazi political party and how to get them across the line. I was just like, what are you doing, guys? What's happening over there at these mainstream outlets? Like, it's ridiculous. Here's the link. Click to like and subscribe if you're a fucking Nazi.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, I feel, we need to talk about this sort of stuff to be aware of it being happening.
Yeah, but you don't link.
But then
you don't link
also,
to it.
you don't like. Yeah, it's a tricky line to walk, I feel, for journalists discussing any kind of like extremism and things like that. It's where
and here's the Nazi Indiegogo. Here's Goebbels' GoFundMe.
Goebbels would have totally had a GoFundMe if
100%.
it was happening now. But yeah, so their political ambitions has been an interesting one. They've already had a bit of a hurdle. So Jack Eltis, who we were talking about before, had his bank accounts frozen and everything. He, the party name that they have proposed is White Australia, would be the political party that they want to register. And party names need approval and all that sort of stuff. But they might have a hurdle because they recently, Jack Eltis tried to register a company on the Australian Securities and Investments Commission registry called White Australia Pty Ltd, which they would have used as their fundraising vehicle, but it was rejected after manual review because obviously. So instead,
the manual reviews are since the neo-Nazi protest. I think there's a couple of Control F operations happening in government. Yeah, there's a couple of words that are on a list somewhere, I think, now.
Yeah, some keywords. But he later successfully registered Terra Australis Alba on September 11th of all days. Yeah, and then they said on Thursday this week that they had 1,495 signatures of the total 1,500 needed to form a party. And then on Friday, they said they had 1,500.
Guys, we're nearly there. Like and subscribe. Help us get over 1 million.
Yeah, so interesting. And this also linked through, like, just if looking at other kind of articles related to this. On Monday, no, there might have been from earlier in the year, but they talk. The Australian Electoral Commission has talked about that they have essentially that they could not or would not block a neo-Nazi party from registering as a political party because the legislation that governs what they can and can't do there says that they essentially can't block the registration of a party for
if you meet
political,
the criteria.
Ideological reasons. Yeah. You have to meet the criteria of like being able to prove that you've got at least 1,500 members. You have to supply a constitution for your party and pay the fee. And it fascinates me in all these sorts of things, right? When we have all these legislations of free speech or party registration, all these kinds of things. Why isn't there but except for Nazis?
Except for Nazis, though.
Clause in all of this. Like, ever since World War II.
Because the Constitution,
the
Constitution was written at a time when
Federation was 1901, right? It's the whole thing.
And this isn't the first time there's been like Nazi political movements, like the UK, America,
Golden
Australia,
Dawn over in Greece, explicitly.
No. I'm talking about like in the 1930s. Nazism was a movement, including in Australia.
You look
at
the
first time
you look at Francoism in Spain, and like it's been something we've been aware of for a while. I mean, the name White Australia specifically refers to the White Australia policy, which was a set of racial policies that aimed to forbid people that were of non-white European ethnic origins from coming to Australia. And that started, sort of in the early 1900s. It was really only dismantled, over successive years between like 1950 and 1973, right? Like my grandparents came to Australia and I presume would have had some sort of difficulties with that because they came in the 40s, right after the war. And it was explicitly the policy of Australia to be a white European ethno-state until like 1973, which was not that long ago, right? Yeah, so clearly this is a sentiment that has been, was popular and is now maybe represents, maybe not the majority, but a plurality of people in this country. There's a significant portion of people that retain these racist views. It is very much embedded in our DNA that Australia is a whites, quote unquote, whites only country. And that sentiment has never really gone away. I think in the 90s, Bill Clinton was playing the saxophone. We were all distracted. Like we kind of thought we'd arrived at the end of history and all these kind of historical forces had been defeated to a certain extent. But it's just been, all of this shit's still here. It's just been bubbling away under the background to the extent to which the party name that they've proposed is an explicit callback to that, this racist policy, right? So clearly they're trying to draw a connection there between like, we used to be, a white racist nation and we can be again. Make Australia racist again. It's concerning that this is an undercurrent that's never really gone away, and it seems to be bubbling back up again now with the rise of these parties in One Nation, all this sort of shit, right? So,
it's just it's just crazy seeing all this sort of stuff, and I just don't. I know I was being facetious before, but I honestly don't understand how there isn't but except Nazis.
No, I agree.
Of course, like
because we're not very good at doing constitutional amendments in Australia. I don't know.
No one is. I totally agree with the concepts of pluralism, and you want parties on all different parts of the political spectrum. But I
don't want to be policing what people think.
Yes, and I get that to a certain extent, but But when you talk about
Nazis, though.
violent, yeah, exactly, the violent Nazism, which is explicitly a philosophy which relies on using democratic means to insert oneself into government and then use that as the basis from which to conduct a violent overthrow of democracy, which is how we've seen it play out in Nazi Germany and many other states, countries. Considering that that's the explicit angle is to basically find the bug in democracy to exploit it, surely we, as a modern advanced society, can say, yes, we respect the modern diversity of all political opinions, with the exception of those that advocate hate and the violent overthrow of the system itself. Like, surely there's that much of a carve out that we could create that would immunize us to some degree against these sort of parties rising. I don't see why we're still so bad at dealing with this. You think we would have learnt the lessons from. I mean, I guess Germany
there's also the concept though of like innocent until proven guilty, right? So it's like they haven't done anything illegal as such yet. This is the thing: is that like we're trying to get them
sovereignty, like when they
in Melbourne, in New South Wales, they haven't done anything.
Well, no, but actually a parallel that I thought was wild. I don't think we even talked about it the week that it happened, but Thomas Sewell and a bunch of those like Nazi boys went and attacked Camp Sovereignty, like Indigenous Australians, protest site after one of their big marches, and Thomas Sewell got arrested soon after it, all that sort of stuff. I think on other issues, but sort of as for his part in it, and then on the day that the first treaty between an Australian government,
the Victorian government,
in Victoria in this case, the Victorian government and Indigenous peoples, our first treaty with our First Nations people was enacted into law. Was also the day they let him out. Despite judges saying risk to the community, all that sort of stuff. They're like, oh no, let that guy out on the same day. Adams doesn't look bad.
Right, though. Clearly their modus operandi is one of plausible deniability. We will advocate hateful views, but I'm not going to explicitly say go attack Camp Sovereignty in a way that makes it, an explicit action of a political party to commit violence, right? Like they're very good
not
at
of a political party,
separating their rhetoric and their views from their actual views and their actions, and what's a member of the group went rogue and did this thing. We're not responsible for this handful of violent guys who went off and did this thing. They're very good at.
He was there. He was there.
No, but you know what I mean. They're very good at compartmentalizing the political rhetoric and the official face of the party and what they advocate against what their actual actions are. Is my point. So it's hard to tie the two together. And that's a plan. That's their strategy.
In Victoria, and I was horrified by that. But just because they did that thing in Victoria doesn't exclude them from running for political office nationally. It's a double-edged sword. So it's one of those things where, again, they can use the system, game the system.
Yeah, it's a bug. It's a bug in democracy.
To their advantage. And unfortunately, if you want things to be equal, then this is kind of the result of that.
But not this equal. Not so equal. You know what I mean?
But then they would say the same thing, but in reverse, and it would be something you don't
Except but they're Nazis, though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. The except for Nazis, though, clause in everything.
I hate to be the the moral kind of absolutist.
It's like Americans,
guy, because
Americans
it's not really
being oh yeah, we're all for free speech and equality. That's democracy. Well, this is Americans expounding those values, except for all these people.
But I think
it's the same thing.
What I think is there's scope to have an expansive idea of freedom of speech, which includes a diversity of political opinions. But I think that needs to be boxed within certain boundaries. You can't just say freedom of speech, anything, anytime, anywhere, at any cost. Freedom of speech, even in the United States system, which is very expansive compared to ours, it's boxed. The example is you can't say fire in a crowded theater. You can't threaten to kill someone. Speech is already limited to some degree. And I argue, and I think Tom's arguing as well, Adam not so much, which is with his mustache and his sympathies, is saying that
Shut up.
that Nazi hateful, violent rhetoric is not an acceptable part of the political discourse, and we should be able to make that argument, and not just make that argument and exclude them from the political process, but to also we as a society need to work together to make that kind of rhetoric unacceptable within the terms of the Overton window, in terms of what's acceptable political discourse. Like, we need to do two things. We need to kick them out, and we also need to make them unpopular, even more unpopular than they are. And I don't know that we're doing a good job of either of those two things at the moment. And I think that's why you're seeing the rise of these far-right parties, not just here, but across Europe as well.
Yeah.
It's concerning. Speaking of concerning, exploding batteries. Virgin and Qantas have issued a ban on the use of portable power banks on planes after a number of notable instances of spicy pillows, splody batteries on planes. One of which I saw actually like people evacuated and everything, but ended up like consuming an entire plane in fire. So there's been a lot of instances of, lithium power banks, obviously portable electronic devices. The usage has exploded, no pun, over the last, 10 to 15 years. And I think with that comes more need for power. So people are more frequently carrying power banks with them. And of course, these power banks are of varying quality. If you get a good quality battery from a good quality, a high quality reputable brand like Anchor or Ugreen or something like that, you're probably going to be fine. But if you pick one up on AliExpress from, Speedy Pete's battery factory, you're more likely to experience some issues. And people are carrying these cheap batteries around with them everywhere and using them on planes. And so what they're saying is there's a limit on the number of batteries you can take with you now on planes. You can have 2 batteries. I think you can add up to 160 kilowatts. So it's actually a good amount. Like, that's a massive, sort of battery capacity that you can take with you.
They measure it in watt hours. But when I looked at the power bank, like, I got a power bank for a recent trip overseas, which I'm glad that I was allowed to take it.
Yeah. Well, you can take it, you just can't use it on the flight. It needs to be like near you at all times. You need to be like looking at it to make sure it doesn't explode.
But like when I was checking it and everything, they were like, this is the maximum capacity that they let you take on a flight or something.
Yeah,
but it's not measured in watt hours.
It's 20,000 like the milliwatts.
27,000.
27 is the max. Okay.
Yeah, 27,000. But like, I don't know what that is in watt hours.
I honestly find these whole rules are just confusing, and I think are going to be completely ineffective. So I think you either need to have a blanket ban on any batteries.
It's not clear,
or not. I don't know. Like, I've got a little, like, a very small power bank. Like, is that okay? Like, it's like, design. I think what they've tried to do. Yeah, what they've tried to do with this is make it simpler in the sense of that it's like, you may take them on the flight, you may not use or charge them.
Yes,
and
that's
it has
the key.
to be
What's the point?
Visible.
So you have it with you when you're on the flight. It needs to be can't be in your carry-on. It can't be in your checked luggage. It needs to be in your carry-on. It needs to be with you, and you can't use it during the flight. So the idea is, if something happens,
you can taking it on a trip, so that when
you can still take it on a trip.
You have a power bank. But, so it's kind of
But
weird.
like,
where it's like
these phones still have
it.
the same kinds of batteries,
lithium-ion batteries in them. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
and your personal devices.
7?
Like laptops, phones, every device still has the same battery.
I think
that are in the power banks
the
themselves.
Distinction that they're drawing, though, is that if you're buying a device from Samsung, the Note 7 accepted, or another major retailer, you're buying a device which is like of a certain quality. It's an integrated battery as opposed to just like a loose battery that could be pressed up and rubbing up against stuff and, maybe inadvertently switching on and touching something and damaged. And, like a phone is a kind of a discrete device. You generally have it on your person. It's in a case. It's like, it's the kind of loose, cheap, shitty batteries knocking around in your suitcase that they're sort of worried about because they're more likely to cause issues. An integrated laptop battery I mean, these things happen.
It's
You
my
know,
brick.
yeah, well, yeah, I've got something very similar to that as well, which I take on all my flights as well, because the last thing you want is to run out of power on your devices when you're traveling.
What are they going to now put screens on all the long-term flights? So everyone's, are we all just now raw dogging? Is that what we're all accepting now? Is that we're just going to raw dog shit?
We're all going to raw dog the flights.
You can't read a book. Read a book, heathen.
Yeah, take a book.
I haven't read a book since fucking 2007.
Oh God, that's probably true.
You didn't read a single book through our undergrad?
I scanned books, Tom. I scanned them very quickly. Skimmed. I read like the first 3 pages and then had to have a nap and then guess the exam.
I mean, if the first 3 pages don't give you the entire thesis statement of the book, it's not worth reading.
Miss, is this going to be on the test? I certainly understand the concern, especially as people have these batteries more frequently.
I've seen footage of those fires and
it's
stuff.
scary.
That looks terrifying.
Yeah, people, overhead lockers just like on fire and emergency landings and stuff. Like, yeah, it is.
You can't put them out. It's
very difficult to. Yeah, it's because it's like a chemical fire essentially. It's something.
Yeah, you can't just throw water on that fire.
No, and nor should you.
Do not do that.
So.
Do not do that.
Yeah, but I think they also acknowledge the reality that's like, yeah, you can't ban batteries because, as you say, Adam, like everything's got fucking batteries in it. So like, how could you possibly police that? People need to take their phones with them, their laptops, their whatever. So you can't just ban batteries. But I think they're using them, not being able to use them on the flights, that might make some sort of difference. But who knows? I mean, it's I think we're just just in a very electrified state as a society now that I just don't know how successful any sort of restrictions are going to be at rolling some of these incidences back.
Yeah, I find that not using them on the flights interesting in that was kind of the whole point that I got the one that I did.
So you can use it, wherever you are.
When I'm on the ground,
you don't need it
probably
as much.
won't be too far away from a PowerPoint at any sort of time. It was more I'm going to be on a plane for like 15
hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they say they've got plugs on most of the planes, but like you're not going to get the kind of power draw that you would need to like run a laptop or something like that, right?
So yeah, that's why I got it. So I could recharge on the flight. So like it's kind of you're almost killing a whole industry also that way as well. I mean, if it's dangerous, it's dangerous. But yeah, I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. I've got a flight coming up, so we'll see how that goes. On that smoky note, we have been Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that do, or ever will exist at our handle at Unnatural Show. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Threads at tom.heath.
You can follow me to the Movember website where you can donate to my Mo space, and I will be shaving this off on the 1st of December.
Guy with a mustache soliciting donations. Very interesting. Very suspicious, Adam.
Just do my thing, George, for a good cause, okay? Just because I have slicked back hair and a mustache and I'm wearing a black shirt, there's nothing to do with any of my political views.
Very interesting. Thanks for listening, guys. You love what?
I love the stash.
Yeah, hard pass. Thanks for listening, guys. I love your faces. We'll see you next week.